Today we're going back to a word that I've mentioned before. It begins with M, and it is a description of someone who has compassion for others, even though they're in a position to punish that person or to treat them harshly. Do you know what the word is? It's merciful. God is merciful. God has kindness for us, for people, even though he has the authority and power to punish them. If you can remember back to the letter J, I described God as being just. And there was a quote I read that said, because God is just, he cannot overlook sin. But because God is merciful, he has made a way of redemption. God is just, he is judge, he has the power and the authority to punish us for our sin, but God made us and he loves us, and so in his mercy he also provided a way for us to be saved from our sin. There's a story which you might have heard before about two people who were friends throughout school. They spent a lot of their time together, but after school they went in different directions. While one friend eventually became a judge, the other lived a life of crime and destruction. One day, the criminal ended up in a courtroom before a judge who turned out to be his friend from school. The judge recognised the criminal in front of him, had to decide what to do. Was he going to punish this friend? Was he going to let him walk away free? What would you do? In the end, the judge knew that he had to follow the law. He couldn't just let this friend walk free. He had to punish them for what they had been done and fine him for the damage that they had caused. But after making the decision, after proclaiming the punishment, the judge stepped down from his judgy seat, came to his old friend and paid the fine for him. The judge had the authority, the power he needed to punish his old friend, but then he was merciful and paid the cost for him. That's what God did for us. As judge, he had to punish people for their sin. He had no choice. But as a merciful, loving God, he also then paid the price for us when Jesus died on the cross. When God looked at Jesus on the cross, he saw us. He saw our sin. But here's an even more amazing thought. Because when Jesus took our place, he didn't just take our punishment from us. He made an exchange. Our sin for his perfection. You could call it mercy, you could call it grace, but whatever you call it, what it means is that when God looked at the cross, he saw us. But when he looks at us, he sees Jesus. When we come before God, we are cloaked in Jesus' righteousness, in his perfection. Psalm 89 verse 14 says this: your kingdom is founded on righteousness and justice. Love and faithfulness are shown in all you do. I always want to put a yet or but in between those two phrases. Your kingdom is founded on righteousness and justice, yet love and faithfulness are shown in all you do. But that word is not there. God is righteous and just. He is love and he is faithful. Psalm 145 verses 8 to 9. The Lord is loving and merciful, slow to become angry and full of constant love. He is good to everyone and has compassion on all he has made. The book of Lamentations is a book that's all about loss. It's a book full of sorrow that the great city of Jerusalem had been destroyed. Yet in the middle of the book, almost as central as you could get, the author is talking about his sin. He's talking about the punishment from God, how terrible it is. And then he writes these words that bring him hope. The Lord's unfailing love and mercy still continue. Fresh as the morning, as sure as the sunrise. The Lord is all I have, and so I put my hope in him. Everything else may be lost, but he knows that God will never leave him or abandon him. God's love and mercy will remain. There's a song that I've been listening to a lot recently. It's called His Mercy is More. And I'll put a link to it so you can listen to it for yourself. But there's a line that is repeated throughout the whole song, and that says, "Our sins, they are many. His mercy is more." It's a great reminder that God is merciful. But how should we respond to this mercy? Well, ultimately, that is up to you, really. For me, I'm going to be thankful, and I'm going to praise, and I'm going to tell others about God's mercy. But more than simply celebrating God's mercy towards me, Jesus challenges me, tells us that in Luke chapter 6, he says these words, "Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. We should imitate Christ. We should imitate God because we're made in his image to be like him. And so as we experience God's mercy in our lives, we should be merciful towards other people. How can you do that this week? How can you show God's mercy to other people? God is merciful. Our sins, they are many, but his mercy is more.